Hey everybody, welcome back to month 2 of our Mosaics and More 2026 Block of the Month Club. Today we're going to be working on a block. Again, we're working on basic blocks throughout this series. We're going to be working on a block called Susannah. It's actually a variation of the Susannah quilt block, so it's obviously very similar to a Susannah quilt block with a variation. Today we're going to be working on 2 new skills. We're going to be working on strip piecing. So we're going to be piecing together longer strips of fabric and then subcutting them to the size that we need for our actual project. And we're also going to be working on snowball corners. So get your material out. If you are not already signed up for our Block of the Month Club, there's a link below in the show notes where you can click to join us. All of the information in terms of the previous month's block is there, so you can find that and catch up with us. So in this particular video, we'll be following the instructions for the second block. So grab your instructions, grab your fabric, and let's get started. All of the details as it relates to the sizing of the pieces that we'll be using today are included in the instructions that are in the learning portal, or whatever we're calling it, where all the documentation is stored for this 2026 block of the month. I think I've been calling it a learning center, so let's stick with that. So the details around the size of the pieces are there, so make sure you sign up. So again, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to take our 2 long strips of material and we're going to sew them together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you just want to line up the pieces here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this to the iron, and I'm going to press my seams open, so I'm going to finger press here. Finger press, and then I'll take this to the iron and press down so that they're flat. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to subcut this strip into 4 equal pieces. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so now we're going to take each of these rectangle 1 units and we're going to sew onto each side. And we won't take each of them, we'll just take 2 of them. We're going to sew a white square onto both sides. I do want to mention that we are using the Art Gallery Pure Solid fabric line. And the colors that we're using today are, specifically we're using the snow, which is the white color. And then we're also using, again, the raspberry rose. We use this in the block 1 block. And then today we're also using this blue color here, which is called Tile Blue. And these are all available wherever you find Art Gallery fabrics. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, so we have our 2 strips here, which will, as we progress in the pattern, we'll see that these are our row 1 and row 3. So we're going to take these to our iron and we're going to press the seams open and then press them with the iron to flatten them. And then we will move on to our next step, which is creating our square and square for the center of this block using the snowball method. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to make the snowballs corners on this larger square here, which will then ultimately become our square and square center. To do that, we're going to mark on the squares that we have here. So on each of these squares, you're going to just draw a diagonal line corner to corner. Okay, so we're just going to take each of these smaller squares and place them in the corner of our larger center square here. And we're going to, as you can see, we'll just place this here. And what we're going to do is to sew directly on this line here that we've drawn on. And I'm going to pin this so that it doesn't move about. So make sure that's good. Okay. The next thing, we're going to take this over to our sewing machine and we're going to sew just slightly behind the line that we've drawn on. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to stitch just a hair behind the line that we've drawn on. Okay, so once you have that corner sewn on, then we're going to trim 1/4 of an inch away from the line that we've just sewn on. So you just want to take your ruler and line the 1/4 inch mark up on the line that you've sewn on. And we're going to give it a cut. We'll save those pieces. And then you're going to flip this up And I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to press it, and then we'll come back and do the next corner. Okay, so we're going to just rotate around this square. We're just going to continue sewing on each of these corner squares. You don't actually have to pin this, but if you just want to make sure your fabric isn't going to move or shift on you, you'll just pop 2 little pins in. Okay, and so now again we're going to take this to our sewing machine and we're going to sew just behind the line that we've drawn on. Okay, so we're just going to flip this up so we can see that we've got good coverage there. So again, we're going to trim here, line the 1/4 inch mark up on the line that we just sewn on, and we're going to trim, and then we're going to press this so that it remains flat. So we'll be right back. Okay, so now we're at our 3rd corner here. So just going to do the same thing. Line this up here. Throw in a couple of pins. Okay. And then we're going to sew again just behind the line that we've drawn on. And we want to sew slightly behind the line that we've drawn on, just so that when we flip our corner up, if there's any maneuvering that we need to do to make sure that we have the entire square covered, you have a little bit more leeway to do that. Okay. Okay, last corner. So we'll fold this up. Pretty good coverage there. And now we're going to just do this trim again. Lining up the 1/4 inch mark. Snip off. And those are big enough pieces to save. So next we're going to take our remaining rectangles from our first step. And now we're going to just sew them onto our square and square. But we want to make sure that we rotate or flip the fabric. So you can see I have the tile blue and the roseberry rose here, and then just the opposite on the other side. And we're going to sew them to the center square using a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so we're just going to sew this on using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're just lining those pieces up. And sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're going to press our seams. I'm going to press mine open. You can do yours open or to the side, whatever is your preference. And then we're going to iron them to flatten. I guess people don't like to say iron. We're going to press them to make sure that the seams are flat. Okay, so the next step is to sew on the top and bottom rows. So we're going to take the row strips that we created in step 1 and 2, and we're going to just attach them. So we want to, I'll just lay this out so you can see it. So again, we're laying them out so that the side color squares alternate. And so now we're just going to attach this using a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to throw a few pins in so that I can make sure my seams are lined up. Okay, so now I'm going to sew this using a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so we will finger press the seams open or to one of the sides. And we will iron those, press those flat in a moment. But now we're going to attach the bottom row. So again, I'm going to pin my seams together. Okay, and so we're going to take this to our sewing machine and we're going to just sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so last finger press, and then we're going to press both of the seams that we have from attaching the bottom and top rows. So here is our final block. This is block 2 of our Mosaics and More 2026 Block of the Month Club project. And the name of this block is the Susannah Variation. So hopefully you've enjoyed sewing along with us today. Again, if you are not already a member of the Block of the Month Club, please click the link below so that you can join. And then you'll also at that time get all of the past patterns, which at this point is just block 1. So we hope to see you next month. And please, if you haven't done so already, like the video, subscribe to our channel. Please leave me a comment. I'm always interested in hearing feedback from my viewers. And then also click that bell so that you make sure that you get all of our notifications as soon as we release videos. Have a great day. Bye.